Welcome to Silent Stories Updates, where we share stories that remind you how standing your ground can sometimes be the hardest, yet most powerful thing you'll ever do. My name is Daniel Walker, and this is the story of how the HOA tried to take my family ranch and how the fence I built made sure they'd regret it forever. My grandfather bought that land almost 100 years ago. My father grew up there, worked the soil, raised cattle, and taught me what it meant to be a man of the land. That ranch wasn't just property, it was our legacy. Every inch of it told a story. So when I read that letter saying a section of my land had been reclassified as community property for new trails and road expansion, my stomach twisted in disbelief. I drove straight to the HOA office. The woman in charge, Margaret Lane, was sitting behind a polished desk with a perfect smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Daniel," she said sweetly, "we've talked about this for months. You signed the original charter, which gives us authority to make adjustments when necessary." I took a deep breath, trying to hold in the anger boiling inside me. "I signed to maintain order, not to give you the right to steal my land." Her smile didn't move. "You'll still have access to most of your property, but progress requires cooperation." That word, progress, sounded like poison. I walked out of that office shaking with rage. The woman talked about progress while tearing apart something that took generations to build. For a few days, I didn't sleep much. I kept staring out over the fields at sunset, remembering my father's words, "The land remembers who respects it, son. Don't ever let someone who doesn't understand it take control." That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to fight them with lawyers or politics, not yet. I was going to fight the way my father would have. I started building a fence. It wasn't small. It wasn't decorative. It was strong, steel posts sunk deep into the soil, thick oak boards fastened tight, running the full perimeter of what still legally belonged to me. Every nail I hammered in felt like a promise to my father and grandfather. Some neighbors watched curiously. Others shook their heads, whispering that I was wasting my time. But I didn't care. I worked sunrise to sunset, even through the cold wind and blistering heat. After about a week, Margaret showed up. Her fancy car stopped by the gate, and she stepped out wearing spotless shoes that didn't belong anywhere near mud. "Daniel," she called out, her voice sharp and impatient. "This fence is creating tension in the community. It's unnecessary." I kept hammering. "No, what's unnecessary is stealing someone's land and calling it development." Her eyes narrowed. "You're being unreasonable. We can fine you for this." I smiled without looking up. "You can try." She stormed off, but that wasn't the last I'd see of her. Days turned into weeks, and the fence grew taller, stronger, unshakable. I poured everything I had into it. It became more than a boundary. It became my stand against them. Then, nature decided to make a point of her own. One afternoon, dark clouds rolled in over the valley. The wind howled, lightning cracked across the horizon, and rain poured for days. The storm was fierce, worse than any we'd seen in years. But something strange happened. The new road the HOA had built right through my pasture couldn't handle the runoff. They'd torn out natural drainage channels to make way for their improvements. Water had nowhere to go but into the newly developed community lots. Driveways flooded. Lawns turned into swamps. Even some of the new houses had water rising inside. Meanwhile, my side of the fence, the land that had stayed true to its roots, remained dry and safe. The next morning, as I was checking the fence line, I saw Margaret's car again. She ran up to the fence, soaked from the rain, her voice desperate. "Daniel, you need to open this gate and let us redirect the water through your property. The homes are flooding." I looked her dead in the eye. "You mean the land you said wasn't mine anymore? People's homes are in danger." She shouted. I nodded slowly. "Maybe you should have thought about that before you changed the land." She stood there speechless, shivering in the rain, realizing for the first time what she had done. I didn't open that gate, not out of cruelty, but because sometimes the only way people learn respect is through consequences. The storm ended, but the damage was done. News spread fast. Homeowners were furious. They demanded answers from the HOA when the county got involved. The truth came out. The HOA had ignored environmental warnings. and fake documentation to fast-track their development. The reassignment of my land wasn't just unethical, it was illegal. Margaret's perfect smile disappeared after that. The board voted her out, and the county ordered a full investigation. A few months later, a judge reviewed the case and ruled in my favor. The land, every acre of it, was officially mine again. The documents they had used were invalid. My family's legacy was safe. When I walked out of that courthouse, I didn't feel triumph. I felt relief. I felt like my grandfather was walking beside me, tipping his hat with pride. Back home, I stood by the fence as the sun went down. The air was calm, the fields golden in the light. The cattle grazed quietly, and the wind whispered through the tall grass. That fence, the one everyone said was pointless, now stood as a symbol of everything I'd fought for. Months later, the new HOA president, Jeff, came to visit. He wasn't like Margaret. He was younger, humble, and sincere. "Daniel," he said, "on behalf of the new board, I want to apologize. What happened wasn't right." I nodded. "Thank you, but the fence stays." He smiled. I figured it would. After that, things started to change. The HOA stopped acting like rulers and started listening. The neighbors who once thought I was being stubborn began to see what that fence really meant. It wasn't about keeping people out. It was about drawing a line, not in dirt, but in principle. Sometimes, in life, people will try to take what's yours, not just land, but your dignity, your peace, your voice. They'll do it with pretty words, legal terms, and polite smiles. But that doesn't make it right. And sometimes, the strongest thing you can do isn't to shout or fight. It's to stand your ground quietly and refuse to be moved. The fence became more than wood and steel. It became a story, one that spread across the county. People started calling it Walker's Wall, but I didn't mind. Every time I saw it, I was reminded of what perseverance looks like. I remember one morning, a young man who just moved into the area came by. He said, "You're Daniel Walker, right? The guy who stood up to the HOA?" I nodded. He smiled. "My dad told me that story. Said it's proof that sometimes one man's stand can change a whole community." That hit me hard. Because I didn't build that fence for glory or attention. I built it to protect what was right, to honor the generations before me who did the same. Today, years later, that fence still stands strong. The grass is greener now, the animals roam free, and the land feels alive again. Every morning, I walk the line with my coffee in hand, just like my father used to. I run my hand along the rough wood, feeling the strength in it, and I smile. Because it's more than just a fence. It's proof that when you fight with heart and honesty, the truth will always stand taller than the lies. So if you're watching this, remember this lesson. Never let anyone take what's rightfully yours. Whether it's land, love, or peace of mind, protect it. Because sometimes, the quietest resistance is the loudest victory. The HOA gave away my ranch without asking. But the fence I built made sure they'd never forget what happens when you mess with a man's legacy. Thank you for watching Silent Stories Updates. If this story touched your heart, make sure to subscribe and share it, because every story we tell carries a message. No matter how hard life hits, stand firm, hold your ground, and never give up on what matters most. The land remembers who fights for it, and so do the people who live on it.